The next is evaluating oral proposals in major government procurements in the U.S. Department of Transportation. Presentations will be made by Barbara Walters and Letitia Henderson.
Thank you. When corporations hire their employees, they generally request resumes and then interview those best qualified candidates to ensure that the person is in fact capable of performing the position. When the government hires its contractors, it generally gets several linear feet of a paper proposal written by someone who in fact may not perform on the contract, and it has to consider every proposal that is submitted, whether or not that contractor appears initially qualified to perform. When Letitia and I started this procurement, we basically decided to go back to basics and apply that hiring principle to our contractors. We had corporations that were interested in proposing submit a very short statement of qualifications, and we then called in the senior managers or the key employees on the contract who would actually be performing our work under the contract. We videotaped those interviews, and our evaluators used the videotapes in doing their evaluations rather than having to sit there through the interview so that it would not disrupt their other work schedule. Now, when Letitia and I started this, we talked to our contractors and told them what we were going to do. They all went out and canvassed the market to find out who else had done it so they could get the jump on their competition. No one else at the time had done it. Since then, Letitia and I have talked to over 60 other government agencies and groups about what we did, and one of our qualified companies recently quipped that he is now seeing so many videotaped proposals, he feels like he's part of Hollywood East. So we know this program is being replicated. We also believe it's very effective. I saw a quote in the newspaper, one of the journals, trade journals very recently, from the vice president of a company who 2 years ago stood up in front of Dr. Stephen Kalman and said this idea would never work. He recently completed his first oral proposal and has become a believer. So even industry, as it's now going through this process, is starting to believe that this is really a much better way for the government to hire its contractors. We believe it's very significant. Government procurement is a multi-billion-dollar activity, encompasses federal, state, local, wherever you want to go to acquire goods or services. And we made just a quantum leap in the savings, at least at the Federal Aviation Administration, in how much it costs us to run a procurement and how much it costs the contractors to propose on that procurement. So there is just an opportunity for billions of dollars of savings there. The other thing that we did that was fairly significant in this acquisition was we asked the contractors to look at our request for proposals, the ultimate contract, and tell us where we were doing things that were making it harder for them to perform or costing them more money than it needed to. Because if it makes it hard for them to perform, we may not be getting the services we need, or if it's costing them money, it's ultimately costing us money. We adopted many of the recommended changes that they suggested, and as a result, the average cost of labor on this contract from the previous contract that we had has decreased from $131,000 per employee to about $115,000 per employee. With over 300 people working on the contract, that represents some very significant savings for us. Any questions?
Questions?
Yes.
Yes, Lynn.
Will this in any way, or have you seen it, limit new companies who might not already be part of the complex government procurement system from entering the system?
We believe not, because proposal writing had gotten to be a real art in the government, and those companies that already knew how to do it tended to have an edge. When you turn it more into a job interview as opposed to a proposal writing activity, you're looking more at the qualifications of the people who will actually perform the work. And their ability to churn out paper in accordance with regulations loses some of its significance. Yes.
Yes, Margot.
Similarly, it would seem to me that just as you have skilled proposal writers, you can have skilled oral presenters.
That's correct.
And have you run into any problems that are related to that people say things better than they perform?
Well,
Or
first
the
thing,
reverse.
yes, well, we did require the key personnel who were actually going to perform on the contract to make the presentations, and in an attempt to control some of that turnover that we see, we included an additional profit incentive in the contract so that the longer those people stay on the contract, the more profit the company has the opportunity to earn. On the other side, when we had paper proposals, they were being prepared by proposal writers who would never work on the contract at all. So the problem was there in either way, but we think the interview gives us a better opportunity to determine whether or not those people are qualified.
Is there any interaction, or it's all what the people present, but they don't have a chance to respond at all to questions from anyone?
What we did was we had some very scripted questions so that we asked the same question of each company to, under the regulations at the time, we have to treat everyone equally, and we prepared the scripted questions so that we would get some interaction and get some feel for whether or not the people were able to respond on the spot to us.
But in the replication of it over other agencies have engaged in an exchange with the contractor and used that effectively to employ the oral proposal. So it has been modified from when we originally did it.
Dick,
Could you
followed
assign?
by David.
Sorry. Could you assign a percentage to the reduction of time that it takes you from the beginning to the end with this process?
It was over 50%. Normally, the process would take us 12 to 14 months. We got from RFP release to contract award in 5 months. In fact, there was another contract awarded the same day as us that their RFP was out on the street for 18 months.
David?
From the point of view of the flyer, I think people are less interested in efficiency than they are in safety.
Yes.
How do they know, how does the average American flyer know that an oral presentation is going to produce things in the airport and the traffic control towers that are going to be as safe as if you had a lengthier process where you had engineers going over pieces of paper and then looking at
One of the
potential.
problems that we have at the FAA is our procurements are taking so long that the technology being proposed is obsolete by the time we ever get it to the field. So by reducing the time, we at least have the opportunity that the technology will still be current by the time
But are
it's
you
field.
relying upon oral presentations for the quality of the technology? Is that what's
All
happening?
right,
here?
we need to make a distinction here. We used this on a services contract. We did not use this on one of the major systems. And so far in the replication and evolution of the program, again, it's been used more for commodities, computer, PC buys, small, again, a lot of support services, but smaller PC buys. We have not yet seen the very major systems.
The next question from Don.
Does this imply that there was something originally wrong with your RFP in the first place? That the questions were too many, too open, and that you really could have done the same thing by changing the RFP?
Had we known, but at the time I was awarding this contract, my services support what used to be the Advanced Automation System, which was a $6 billion program that had failed. And at the time, we were undergoing a restructuring of the program and a reorganization of the agency, and we basically asked the contractors to give us ideas on how to deal with the changing environment that we were working in. And as a result of that, we've got a much more flexible document that, again, I think saves us a lot of time and